A very good morning, everyone. I'm Shweta Goswami from Moneycontrol, and today we have with us serial entrepreneur and chairman of Avaada Group, Mr. Vineet Mittal. Good morning and hello, Mr. Vineet Mittal. How are you? So I guess you're on mute.
No, I'm
Yeah, now you're audible.
okay. So, good morning, Sweta. Thank you for having me here.
Great. So, friends, as you all know, that COP27 is currently underway in Egypt, and Mr. Vineet Mittal here is just back from this super important conference on climate change, and we obviously had to bring him to you all to get all the latest discussions and developments that have been happening in Egypt at COP27. Mr. Mittal, since you were physically there and you're just back from COP27, can you take us through your experience this time?
So, if you look at COPs, it's becoming bigger and bigger. Every COP you go to becomes much bigger than the last one. And the kind of interest it's generating across the world of civil societies, government, private sector is very encouraging. And this time I was told that almost 50,000 participants were physically present at Sharm el Sheikh. Almost millions of people were logged in online. And there was a huge vibrancy of issues, solutions, way forward. And it was a very good learning trip for me.
Now let us just compare, okay? I just want to bring some sense to our viewers. This is COP27. Could you tell us a bit how you feel or felt that COP27 was different from COP26? This I'm particularly telling because there is a section of people and groups. You talked about civil society as well, and activists who kind of think that such conferences are what we call greenwashing. How do you see? What is the marked differences that you felt from COP26 and this time in COP27?
So, if you look at COP27 is taking against the backdrop of inadequate ambition to curb greenhouse gas emissions. And when COP26 happened in Glasgow, it there was no Ukraine war, the inflation was not so high, and though we had a pandemic at that point of time. So this particular COP was focused on cementing progress on critical work stream of mitigation, adoption, finance, and loss and damage, and while stepping up finance notably to tackle the impact of climate change. So it was more like an implementation COP compared to COP26, where world leaders put a specific milestone towards net zero or real zero, as we say it. So if you look it further, uh, it's usually the COPs are centered around themes of decarbonization, energy transition, innovative solution for financing the climate change, nature, biodiversity, and what role can youth play? Because it's them who are going to be much more impacted by the decision which are taken today and the action which is taken today. So there is a need for transformational shift to implement the Paris Agreement and putting negotiation into concrete action.
Right. It's great that you yourself talked about climate financing because my next question was just about that. India is being very, fiercely pushing for, developed countries increasing their financing commitments, like the $100 billion that was per year that was previously committed in COP15 in 2009. India has said that. Just a few days ago, India said in COP27 that needs to be increased to trillions, right? What do you have to say about that, and how do you see that in terms of developed and developing countries?
I thought Article 6 was a very good step in Paris, where emission reduction in one country count
Mm,
for the climate targets of another. And developed countries receive credit for emission reduction they finance outside their border, allowing these countries to reach ambitious target they would otherwise miss.
right,
And creative avenues for developed countries to achieve cost-effective net emission reduction wherever
right,
in the world is especially important in light of growing fear around energy security, affordability. See, if you look at even in the case of India, we still have we have done phenomenally well on reducing poverty, but we still have 100 million plus people who have to come out of poverty. And India has to continue investing into its infrastructure development, its economic growth, its energy requirement. And if it has to do it sustainably and strike the right balance in terms of energy requirement, economic growth, and environment, it needs to be incentivized. What is world doing to incentivize countries like India, which are not responsible for most of these emissions? and and also have their citizens need them to grow, need the similar opportunity like the developed nation. So India obviously is going to expect some form of compensation so that access to capital becomes easier, like it's easier for the developed nation. So I think Article 6 offered a win-win solution where lowered net emissions for developed nation alongside new capital for sustainable development in emerging market. I think the need of hour is that the developed nation needs to buck up, and they need to provide some form of innovative financing. Says, for example, simply India currently borrows at 9 to 10% for its infrastructure project, whereas in developed nation it's still at 3.5 to 4%. So for us to do the energy transition, we are spending much more money and much more cost of debt. Why can't developed nation consider credit enhancement at zero cost, so that our cost of borrowing for infrastructure, energy transition, green energy, green ammonia type of projects become competitive to the developed nation? That could be a
right,
uh, say straightforward, where no capital is directly involved, and they are protecting for the first loss. So there could be several such ideas if there is an intention to support and do global energy transition. I think my fear is post Ukraine war and high rate of inflation. Uh, People are focusing again on the basic needs in developed nation, where they are saying inflation is so high. What should be our current priority? Post Ukraine war, Europe is having the biggest energy crisis. They are scared about their winters. So all of that puts additional pressure on the European and world leader, that how do you handle the current energy crisis, and at the same time tackle the environmental crisis which they were responsible for making.
right. Very rightly put. Sir, actually, India has, even while demanding more funds from the developed nations, India has repeatedly said that the costs for renewable energy or green energy has also gone up. Could you please explain to our viewers who've just joined in how these costs have gone up and what entails it?
See, India has set up very ambitious target for greening the planet. We are targeting to add 500 gigawatt of renewable energy over next decade. We have a very ambitious target about carbon intensity. India has very ambitious target about how its fuel strategy is changing, whether it is biofuel, compressed gas, bioethanol, or green fuels like green ammonia, green methanol, sustainability, aviation fuel, green hydrogen. All of this needs huge support. For example, when India started the solar sector, uh, the governments in Gujarat and the central government was giving tariff of 15 rupees, and they supported billions of dollar for initial projects to come up. Now we all are feeling proud that renewable energy is the most competitive energy in India, but government had to do lot of effort in building the mandate-based policy, supporting it financially, making initially zero tax. So government needs to do a lot of support before such new industry becomes financially viable. And same thing they are trying to do it now for green fuels. And for India to succeed in that, uh, the developed nation have to take notice of that and support and encourage India's initiative of having 90% of their energy sources become green by 2047.
So, you do from all that you've said so far, you do agree that there is a marked difference in the way the developed countries are behaving or acting towards climate change vis-a-vis the developing nations, right?
If you look at, so though India has not been responsible for causing this damage, but our country's leadership has been very green in nature. They have always said that we want to grow responsibly, we want to grow using newer technology, we want to grow by taking care of our planet because that's inherently our culture. And the world doesn't need to teach us. In our culture, we have been worshipping sun as God, wind as God, and water like Ganga's water. We treat it as mother. So for us, it's ingrained in our culture. And if you look at what government of India is doing, along with the ambitious target for renewable energy and renewable fuels, they are also set up a huge PLI schemes to make sure that the supply infrastructure is addressed and the world is no more dependent on a single source of solar, wind, or electrolyzer, etc., the other technology which is needed to green the planet. So India is investing into low carbon technology, and India is putting its money where its strategies and mouth is. So what India is doing is a similar approach other developing nations are doing, but they can do far better. And what is expected out of the developed nation that as per Paris Climate Agreement, they had agreed to help developing nation to reduce their emission intensity by supporting $100 billion a year. And on top of that, technology transfer to several other things. And that needs to be followed religiously and implemented religiously so that world can benefit at large and India can provide a huge forest reservoir for greening the planet. India is doing a lot of stuff through Campa Fund, which it had collected by taxing the industry. And if you look at indirectly, India has almost $75 equivalent of carbon tax on our petrol, diesel, and gas. Maybe it's in the form of excise duty, but we are penalizing the use of grey power. It's not that India does not have huge carbon tax. They may call it in the form of excise duty, but India is already disincentivizing its citizen to use gray sources and go green, and that's why they are encouraging EV in the mobility or thinking about bringing green hydrogen, green methanol in the heavy trucking industry, etc. So India is doing far better in terms of the policy. And if you extrapolate it to what we are doing on the green hydrogen side, India is the only country which has announced very clear targets on green hydrogen. And on top of that, through mandates mechanism, it's not only ensuring that they have the target, but through mandates on fertilizer, oil, city gas, and few other sectors, they are creating the marketplace also. and they are getting SECI type of intermediaries to purchase green ammonia, green hydrogen, and consolidate the demand from consumer. So what they exactly did it in the area of renewable energy, they are trying to replicate the same story on the renewable fuel.
Very good.
So India is not leaving any stone unturned to fulfill its commitment.
Right. Very elaborately explained, sir. Here, following up with your points, I just wanted to want you to elaborate on one more thing. India has also, and other developing countries has also particularly said that the definition of climate financing currently is very vague. This has also been raised in the current ongoing COP27, uh, because here, why am I asking you? Because you are also a part of the non-state actor. So currently the developed countries, I mean, India's version is that all the investments that are being made, even in the private sector, that is also being counted in that 100 billion whereas the developing countries say that they have a profit margin there as well, in those investments. So how do you see this, and what do you bring from COP27 this time in this discussion?
I think what India is saying, show me the money, and the whole world must do a lot to tackle climate change, and reason why UN organizes a climate conference to bring all the stakeholder together. But when it comes to the money question, it gets complicated quickly, because the way it is defined, it's defined by jargons. Like, so
Exactly.
some places they say spending on mitigation and adoption. Is it supposed to come from 100 billion pot of climate finance, contribution from developed nation and industrialized nation, which is agreed more than a decade ago, trading in carbon offset under Article 6, which is meant to transfer the money from the developed countries to developing countries. Loss and damage is the next uh, kind of mechanism of compensation for disaster, such as floods, etc., which are happening in India. So I think we will have to make it very simple so that the trillions of dollar which India had sought for climate action, they should very clearly define that what is how much of money is to address the climate change, and how much of this fund is towards averting the climate change. Uh, so if you are like paying for reducing emission and reducing global warming, uh, it potentially averts the damage that would have been caused if climate change was going unchecked. And this is the form of expenditure which goes into renewable fuels, renewable energy, other decarbonizing technology like CCUS, etc. Then there are investments which are required to minimize, like you have to pay to adapt the warmer climate. So making environment infrastructure which is more resilient to the volatile world. It I think what is needed to be done is to minimize the losses and damages caused by climate change. So constructing of defense, like in low-lying country, against the rising sea level, preparing for the heat waves in say deserts of India where we have huge amount of people living there, by uh, building new technologies in the area of cooling or designing buffers of open green space to absorb heavy rainfall. And finally, on addressing the climate change, how are they compensating poor nations? So I think all of these are becoming very expensive. Uh, the cheapest probably is to reduce the carbon emission, and followed by the adoption of warming conditions. But uh, they have to figure out a way to compensate also for the losses of life and biodiversity due to all of this change. And if you look at, there are studies which are saying 100 trillions plus dollar will be required by 2550, and Bloomberg New Energy Finance was mentioning that number to be as high as around 114 or trillion. So there is a lack of taking the moral responsibility. I think if you have benefited by abusing the nature for the past 200 years and have become the developed and super rich nation, you should actually pay back. It's the time is running out on us, and it's the responsibility to expand the financing in every form, and it should increase from billions to trillion. Otherwise, just using MDBs or World Bank related agencies to fund that is not going to make a huge change.
Right.
And I
Right.
think timing is today. We will not have this time back if you don't take action now.
Absolutely correct. Let me just quickly reset this room. Hello, everyone. You're joining me, Shweta Goswami from Moneycontrol, and we have with us today Mr. Vineet Mittal, who is the chairman of Avaada Group. He's just come back from COP27, and we are discussing COP27, climate change and climate financing. Going back to what we were talking about, so, see, we have for all this while talked about countries talking to each other and governments talking to each other. I would now want to talk about companies and non state actors. In the last 2 days at the COP27, the UN placed a report in which it said that, that the promises by companies, banks, and cities to achieve net zero emissions often amount to little more than greenwashing. They have given recommendations such as, companies cannot claim to be net zero if it continues to build or invest in new fossil fuel infrastructure or deforestation. So, sir, on this, you being from the industry, what do you have to say, and how does your company, strive to be different? But first, I would like you to talk in general about companies and non-state actors and their role.
So every one of us has a role to play. Uh, we as a citizen of nations, we are as a user of Mother Earth, and every corporate. Why do corporates or companies exist? They exist to fulfill certain needs of this society. And while fulfilling those needs of the society, it has to be done in the responsible and accountable fashion. So when UN Secretary General or other agencies are raising the issues around greenwashing, it's absolutely correct that you can't be funding methane-based project and expect that using some form of carbon sequestration, it would be done to become green. Or say, for example, a blue ammonia project by using CCUS. There are Cornell and Stanford University, which says even during that process, what you have is a fugitive gas, and gas leakage actually makes it more harmful than even gray ammonia. So, so there are scientific studies uh, which are able to clearly articulate what is green, what is not green, and let's respect the science and follow the nature. I think there is a very good belief system in India, and it's part of our culture, which is around the whole concept of Vasudev Kutumbakam, where the whole world is one, and we are like one family, and we have one future. So if people continue to do unethical practices around greenwashing, it's they are going to be held accountable, and they are going to be asked questions, and probably their shareholders are going to make sure that what they promise they deliver. So I think there is nothing wrong about it. And when it comes specifically to Avada, our name itself comes from Ayurveda, and which is the science of life. And we very strongly believe that each companies should evaluate what they are contributing to the world, and like they do their annual targets, they should do a target around if they did not exist, what is world going to miss about it, and what they are doing is are they doing it aligned with the nature and with the future of the world. with the future of the world and the nation they live in. So we are accountable to the countries where we are living and to the world at large. So Avada, what we have done is we want to become a green molecule company and a fully integrated energy company where we will produce right from solar panels to IPP and eventually going on to make sustainable aviation fuel, green methanol, and green ammonia. We are currently setting up a 5 gigawatt cell to module line with uh, part of it getting operational next year. We are looking at investing into greening the planet. We are also intending to award a million ton of green ammonia EPC contract next year to make sure that our project goes into the next stage. So Avada as a company believes, and we do this exercise that we don't only look at EBITDA margins or PAT margins. We look at social returns on our investment, and we also evaluate environmental return on our investment. And when companies start doing that, I think their approach towards doing businesses will change, and we will become more and more accountable to our stakeholder on not only growing our business but growing responsibly along with the nature and nurture the nature which we have inherited from our forefathers.
Here, I would request you give us one exclusive news for Money Control from Avaada Group. Any new projects lineups? I know you've already mentioned a few, which we have ourselves reported as well. But any new projects or tying
We
up with?
participate in the bids every month. So if you must be reading every month, we are winning some project or the other project in parts of the world. We are starting a new project under Ramsal in Agar. We are starting a couple of project to address the industrial customers in Karnataka and Maharashtra. So every month we are launching a new project, and that's what country needs. Country needs wider adoption of renewable energy, and they need more players like us who are setting up large capacities in gigawatt in green energy and in the green molecules.
All this obviously takes a lot of money. So, could you give us some news about any investor talks that is happening or anything?
We are always in the market raising the money. It's never that you are not in the market. You have every month my team shows me some chat where we are doing some financial closure. We are raising money through the bonds. We are raising money through all forms of channel. And for a growing company, you have to in a so we are not a dividend paying company. We are looking at high growth. So whatever capital is coming, all of that is getting deployed in the growth of business. And India has a very ambitious target to decarbonize its economy, and we want to play a very vital role in decarbonizing the India.
Right, and you talked about India. Even Avada has the 30 gigawatt target by 2030, right? So, are we on track? I mean, is Avada on track on that, or has it kind
So
of exceeded its yearly plans, targets, or could you just give us an update on that?
we are fully committed towards 30 gigawatt target. This is an ambitious target for us, and as I was saying, we are actively participating in all the bids which are floated by several states and central government. And the biggest challenge, as you would know, in the past 2 years have been around the supply chains and over dependence on a single country for the entire supply chain. So to diversify our supply chain and become the supplier for the world, Avada is investing into the manufacturing of solar cells, solar panel, and eventually we want to set it from the sand to molecule company. So we are fully on target around that, and fortunately, government of India's vision and plan is fully aligned with Avada's strategy. We aligned our strategy to government target, and we think we will meet and exceed our expectation because there is no shortage of good projects in India now.
So the second tranche of the solar manufacturing PLI scheme is out, and obviously you've talked but about it previously also with us in our previous interview. But is there any development on that front from your company's
Uh,
end?
So government has appointed SECI this time to run that process. We have submitted our feedback on their consultation approach. So as soon as the PLI scheme is out, we expect to participate for a large quantity there based on the government direction and based on what is the process SECI is going to follow. So we are very excited about it, and we are going to participate wholeheartedly into that.
Saran, you have also been in several as you have said, in several consultation meetings and discussions, not just with the government departments or ministries, but also Niti Aayog and all. So, could you just kind of tell us what do we expect in the upcoming budget next year in February in terms of the energy sector?
So if you look at, I think we are seeing that government being very consistent in their budgeting exercise. So they walk the talk and they align it with the announcement made by ministries or made by Honorable Prime Minister. So if you even look at last time they announced 19,500 crore extra PLI, which was
Yeah.
announced by Renewable Energy Minister R.K. Singh ji during his interaction with industry. Budget brought that. So my sense is that they will bring out a huge incentive program around manufacturing of electrolyzer locally in India. They are going to be bringing out export-based incentive around exporting green ammonia, green methanol, or SAF to the global market. So there will be uh, some incentive amount in terms of the dollars for every ton of ammonia exported. There is going to be potentially mandates would be announced either pre-budget or during the budget on various industry what kind of what percentage of their ammonia or hydrogen consumption has to come from the renewable fuel sources. So so this budget will have a lot, and I think the government what we have seen in the past 8 years, they don't for budget to make the changes. Whenever there is a need, they keep making changes incrementally, and that's what is going to reflect on the budget as well.
Right. And climate change kind of also entails sensitive issues of geopolitics and economical ecopolitics topics, right? So I just wanted to know, where do you see this fitting in the growth story of developing countries? Because why I'm this asking this is because you obviously saw in April and May how our power demand just shot up, and we are increasing reliance on coal, and that's actually a thing which is globally happening because of gas prices increasing, and kind of everywhere, even in Europe, people are I mean the governments are reopening their coal thermal power plants and all. But where do you see this fitting in, and uh, yeah, what do you have to say about this?
So if you look at in the past 12 months, almost every country's power and energy prices shot up considerably. And if you look at India, we give fairly consistent price power, which is only 20% of the entire energy basket. But even in the energy basket, India managed its rate transfer to the consumer very smartly by either reducing the excise duty or ensuring that they increase their basket of importers and managing the price risk very well. So India has done an outstanding job in managing inflation when it comes to the energy related stuff, and energy and global politics is intertwined. We, if you look at uh, obviously the whole Ukraine-Russia war looks like the war because of the energy sources, and I think in years to come, the India's strategy of becoming self-reliant, not only on the supply chain but through green fuels, becoming less and less import dependent and be truly Atmanirbhar by 2047 is a very remarkable strategy. And I think you guys as a journalist should study it much more and see what all ambitious plan India has made. And because of its own internal robustness. When the whole world was suffering badly, India could manage it well. When in our neighboring countries, there were all sorts of struggle and people on the street because of the energy crisis. Not only India handled its energy crisis very smartly, it also supported its neighboring nation by providing them the energy sources. So I think India's strategy aligns it with its national security, and energy security is paramount important to India. And we are realizing more and more that we cannot be dependent on rest of the world to meet our energy requirement, and that's why India is going for the greener sources of energy, greener sources of fuel, more energy efficiency, and stuff like that.
Right. So, do you think the economic principles
And
like
I want to bring another thing. Actually, unlike many part of the world, what India has now done is that citizen-centric energy transition, and they have launched this program on empowering the citizen with mission lifestyle for environment. So I think those kind of changes where you make all the stakeholders part of your energy transition is very powerful. Uh, and that's what was needed. I think the whole world notices Mission Life and adopts it because the way energy wastage is happening across the world. India currently has the one of the lowest per capita consumption of energy in the world.
right?
And despite having that, India came out with a very citizen-centric energy transition, and in almost every bigger conference, our Prime Minister himself says that why sustainability and Indianness goes well together, and why should each of us look at our energy, food, and water footprint and not waste these scarce sources of nature. So I think it's a India is doing far better than I had expected personally also.
Oh, sir, here I just want for you to explain our viewers because this has been one of the central themes from India's side in COP27. Weaning in or stitching in renewable energy or sustainable energy transition in our lifestyles, right? As you've also like making it more citizen centric. Could you tell our viewers how these things can be achieved in daily life as well as is our theme, bringing it in our lifestyles?
So if you look at basically, it's all about recyclability. Like even if you look at while growing up, even many times my mother would get my father's trousers stitched by a darji and make sure that we wear that. And that is what Indianness is all about. We don't like to waste things. We don't like to waste food. We don't like to waste uh, paper. We don't like to waste literally anything. And we are not like over consuming society by and large. And that is why I think what our leadership keeps reminding us that our culture was always about minimalism, and our culture was living responsibly with the nature. Like if you look at even the morning prayers which we do in the morning, we do Surya Namaskar. We even before touching the earth, we say that Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam. So basically, the whole concept is that the Mother Earth, we are using you, and we are you are blessing us with abundance of food, abundance of water, abundance of sunlight, abundance of nature, and we are sorry for kind of excessively using and abusing you. So the concept of gratitude, that whatever world has given us is sufficient for all of us, and we don't need to take all those things on a single day and abuse it. The amount of water which is required for, say, one shirt is around 3,000 liter. Once you are aware of that, before buying a new shirt, unless you need it, you won't just waste it. So it's, I think, in every behavior, like simple things like you won't switch on your tap while brushing, and you will use it responsibly. So every small steps actually does have an impact on the nature, and the more aware we are, and the more we have the mindset of gratitude towards the nature, we won't abuse it, and that's what is the need of our globally, not just in India.
Sir, do you think the economic principle of the polluter pays should be applied?
I think it's basically uh, uh, it's a basic principle of economics. It's nothing to if you are how will you ever transition the economy if you are not going to hold people who are causing pollution accountable? So there has to be a vibrant global carbon market which is accountable, which is auditable, which is trackable, and there should be a level playing field across the world. Otherwise, developed nations are going to put carbon border adjustment mechanism, and which is what Europe has already announced, that they will start tracking carbon emissions from the industry where you are working, whether it is steel, whether it is any type of metal, or for that matter, any industry. Whatever emissions you are making in your own country, you will have to buy EU ETS equivalent of CBAM and use that CBAM to become neutral with the European manufacturer. So I think eventually in next 5 6 years it will become a global norm. It's unavoidable, and the more developing nation build their own carbon market, it will be more behavioral changer for industry as well as the user community.
Right. There are experts, and even at the United Nations, are now kind of dismissing the use of cheap carbon credits. This, I mean, to offset the continued emissions as a visible net zero strategy. Do you agree to that? The concept of carbon credits and offsetting it as a
I
solution?
think the whole Article 6 is based on that. And if you hear what I said before, I think we need more comprehensive carbon credit mechanism. Actually, today, what is happening? See, when I'm selling you a product, like I'm selling a fruit, you know the quality and you are consuming that. So you are concerned about the quality of the food which you intake when you are buying from the buyer. Similarly, what is needed in the carbon credit today? There is an independent agency like, say, VCU or Gold Standard or GCC, who is verifying, who is registering your project, and there is a third party verifier. I think eventually the transparency has to increase, whereas a buyer, say an Amazon or Google, is able to verify that whatever carbon emission reduction certificates you have got is genuine and it's impacting. And I think there is a need now to bring the concept of additionality, and additionality in terms of basically that whether the emission reduction would have occurred without those CRs. If a project can sustain the cost of capital, that is, for example, the return paid to the investor, high enough for the private sector or government to invest without carbon credit, then the project is not additional. It could be financed any which way. But many projects in developing nation are not profitable to pay return in sync with the risk they take. Say, for example, even today, green ammonia is super expensive if the gas prices drop to $10. So without having a vibrant carbon pricing, the transition is not going to happen. Uh, Humans respond to positive incentive much more. So this is a positive incentive in some way, that when someone knows that if I'm emitting a carbon, I have to buy some form of carbon reduction certificate. Then it creates a marketplace, and that marketplace adjusts the right price. The price discovery is realistic, and so if the additionality can be proven, if the transparency in how the certificates are issued is improved, I think it's the best approach to develop this. And probably another thing which can be added to this is the cost of capital and additionality, so that there is more transparency to the whole process.
Right, right. So, you've obviously just recently talked about all the ventures and projects that Avada Group is going into. It's going to it's already doing renewable energy generation. And then, all right. So, okay, sir has to run in 2 minutes. So I'll just quickly wrap up. I just want to know, you were getting into renewable energy generation, then you were also talking about manufacturing equipments, and then also electrolyzers. In the next 1 to 2 years, what is going to be Avada Group's key focus areas? So these are all the areas that I know it would be simultaneous as well, but key focus areas in 1 2 years.
So Avada Group over last decade has been one of the larger contributors toward reducing carbon emission through its green projects, and we want to continue doing that. In addition to that, to make our business model more sustainable, we are backward integration into equipment manufacturing of solar cells and module, which is what we are going to implement over next 12 to 18 months. And at the same time, our focus will be to take from engineering to construction phase our first million ton of green ammonia project. So that would be our biggest focus over next 12 to 18 months.
Right. Thank you so much. So that was Mr. Vineet Mittal, Chairman of Avada Group. And thank you so much for your meaningful insights from COP27 and climate financing and the latest from Avada Group. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mittal. We'll
Thank
keep
you,
it.
Sweta. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts.
See you.
See you.